welcome to another live stream from the only channel you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today I'm going to be introducing my new book by reading the introduction to the new book. I was supposed to read chapter 3 this week, but I figured I needed an introduction, so I wrote that, so that's what we're going to do. But for right now, let me get Ala Toledo on the line, because we're figuring that's the way we got to do this. We got to start the YouTube thing and then call him. Here we go. Our program isn't allowing for both. Can you see me?
No, but I mean the video camera should be used by Exploit.
Okay, so that's cool. That's why I'm gonna go ahead and block that, and hopefully everybody out there in TV land or computer land can see me. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started by reading the introduction that I just wrote to my new book. That sound good?
Sounds good with me.
All right, so let me see here if I can get this thing opened. It's a really good one. One of the things I want to mention is that all of this is going on our website, which means that if you wish, next week, and in fact right now, if you can get on the website, you can go up to the one of the tabs on the top says the book, and click on introduction. I do believe that's in there, and you can follow along as I read, and I hope that this is the correct one, because I just opened up the one that was on my desktop and not the one that I've published. Alright, introduction. The book that you are about to read is based on a huge library of ancient documents, all pointing forward in time to a single cataclysmic event that is about to take place. In our day, many seem to feel that something is about to happen, but have absolutely no idea what that something is. Our civilization is based on the same basic building blocks that were put in place when mankind first set out to improve on God's creation, in effect elevating themselves to the positions of gods. In order to achieve Godship, the first humans had to have help from a being that the Bible refers to as Satan. Outside of the Bible narrative, this being is spoken of by many names. In ancient Egyptian mythology, he is called Osiris, and over time has been joined by many other spirit creatures, all perpetuating the false idea that mankind has the right and, in fact, the responsibility to determine the best way to manage our planet's resources. In the Bible, these beings are often called demons or unclean spirits. Outside of the Bible, these creatures are known as the gods. To this day, much of our modern culture is based on the civilization set in place by Osiris. Ancient Egyptian symbols have been discovered. Images of the capstone of the Great Pyramid have been discovered all over the world, and this symbol of the builders is still the symbol of man. A constant reminder to humanity that it is better to be a god and make your own rules than to follow the rules set in place by the Creator. In our day, the majority of mankind feels that God's rules are too restrictive, too limiting, too oppressive. One of the primary reasons that many feel this way is likely because they are unfamiliar with just what rules God requires His creation to adhere to. Satan and his angels have been very busy over the centuries, dedicating vast resources into the empire's propaganda system. All religions around the world are under the direct rulership of Satan and the demons. All sources of knowledge have been polluted by lies. In the Bible, Satan is called a liar, and in fact, the father of the entire institution of lying. Contrary to popular belief, the rules that Satan's religions teach are not God's rules. Some of the of the earliest documents that were eventually incorporated into the Bible. In the book of Genesis, it is recorded that our original parents were instructed to eat human food, not eat things that were not human food. Rest, make sure that nothing bad happened to the earth's garden, and reproduce offspring. Throughout the Bible, there are many instances of God warning humanity that if his rules were not followed, there would be dire consequences. God was in no way demanding any kind of sacrifices on man's part, but simply enlightening man to the fact that should humanity engage in activities that caused harm to his environment, mankind would suffer along with the rest of creation. If we compare God's rules to the rules of Satan's governmental systems, economic systems, and religious systems, we can clearly see that the rules that we are currently subject to are exponentially more restrictive, more limiting, and much, much more oppressive than any of the rules given to our original parents. Although the information in this book is based on the experiences of the entire human race over nearly 6,000 years of human history, it is only as we approach the end of civilization that God has allowed the things that you are about to read to be collected together into one place. The reason that this is so important to us is that understanding our past is key to understanding our future. Satan and his demons even now are vigorously exerting themselves in their quest to get every living person to voluntarily participate in the activity that has come to be known as self-rule. The things that you are about to learn are the strongest evidence ever put together that in fact human society as we know it is about to come to an end forever and be replaced by a way of life that is currently beyond most people's imaginations. What makes this book even more incredible is the story of how it is being put together. The collections of teachings that you are about to be exposed to has not been gathered and cataloged by some state-certified religious organization or as a result of some academic collaboration. The author of this book is a crippled old man living on a small plot of wet, muddy land in a rather unorthodox shelter that he constructed himself. Not a man that is well known or respected in his community, but a man that has been thrown away by society. Most of the people that know him consider him to be the crazy old man that lives at the end of the dirt road. In South Mississippi, he is what is known as white trash. He has spent the vast majority of his life being beaten, spit on, and laughed at. On more than one occasion, his neighbors have vandalized his home, pilfered his material possessions, killed his animals, cut down his fruit trees, and poisoned his garden. The abuse that he has suffered at the hands of civilization's adherents has been continuous over the entire course of his life. I make no apologies for the course of my life. Never once have I been made to suffer as a result of any failure on my part. The wicked did not put me through these tests because they were righteous and I was wicked. It has always been the other way around. My story is the story of all mankind. From the very beginning, the wicked have always hated the righteous. Deep inside, out their own wickedness until they notice someone that has chosen to turn aside from wickedness. At 1 John chapter 3 and verse 12, the Bible very clearly explains this tendency when it speaks of the reason that Cain killed his brother Abel. I was made to feel worthless for the majority of my life. It was not until the fall of 2012 at the age of 50 that I woke up to the fact that I knew things that no other person alive seemed to be aware of. Most of the knowledge that was in my head came about as a direct result of prayer. All of my life, I had heard people speaking of the power of prayer and listened to stories of people praying for work, praying for a home, praying for transportation, or praying for a cure to some malady with positive results. But never once did I experience such results when praying for similar things. But on many occasions, when spiritually confused by the teachings of civilization's religions, I would pray for clarity, and those prayers were always answered. And it was always easy to confirm that the answers that I got were accurate, and the answers always contradicted the teachings of religion. I was also able to figure out that all of those people who prayed for such things as work and health never received understanding. With great understanding comes great responsibility. I willingly accepted that responsibility. Before you read this book, you need to understand yourself, that when you are done, you too will possess such great understanding. Please do not squander what you are about to learn. My first successful attempts at sharing the things that I was learning were through YouTube and other social media platforms. I produced many videos about basic Bible truth that were diametrically opposed to every teaching of every religion that civilization had in place. I fully expected to once again suffer for my attempts at dispersing truth, and although there were many attempts made at hindering what I was doing, something happened that had never happened before. People thanked me. Some even expressed the thought that they had been seeking the truth for their entire lives and were relieved that they had finally found it. Over the course of the first 5 years of doing this, I produced several unique Bible-based video series. It is likely that these series are still available through the internet or whatever technology may come along to replace the internet. The All-Seeing Eye, Written in Stone, of Angels and Men, and the Bible Code are some of the most profound videos that I have ever produced, and as of 2017 are still available on the web. I produced all of these videos under the pseudonym Sustenance and Covering. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verses 7 and 8 says, "We brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out. So having nothing more than sustenance and covering, we shall be content." Some versions of the Bible say food and shelter. Others say food and clothing. Every version accurately expresses the idea of being content with life's necessities. As we get closer and closer to civilization's demise, it is possible that life's necessities are all that we are going to have left. As conditions worsen for us, just know that we are richer than those who rule the world. Their power is transitory. The symbol of that power is still that all-seeing eye on the capstone of the so-called Great Pyramid. According to the writings left behind by those who visited the pyramid during the time of Christ, no one has been able to discover how it went missing, why. In fact, even the structure that it once rested on will disappear forever as God's great day of judgment arrives. When the smoke finally clears, those who survive as well as those who are resurrected will find themselves on a cleansed earth, cleaner than it was when Noah's Ark came to rest on dry ground. Nothing produced by Satan's civilization will remain. No roads, no agricultural projects improve our earth. Every living species that man environment. Many of the things that have not again walk the earth, occupy its waters, and fill its skies. All of the species of plants that were created family will be restored, even the trees of life. What you are about to read will sound nothing like any one of the teachings of the world's religions are about to be overturned in ways that once done cannot be undone. It would be appropriate at this time that and approach our Father in prayer. It would also be the course of wisdom that as you finish each chapter, you stop and thank our Creator for turning His attention to our plight and delivering into our hands this wealth of sacred secrets. I hope that was trying to sound like a preacher. Did I do it okay?
I don't know, but I guess it's a book on tape now, right? Is that what we're trying to accomplish?
Nah, this is part of that book, the regular book that I wrote. I've already, put this on the website as chapter 1, chapter 2, and I think I got up to chapter 4 is on the website now. And I just got to thinking that all books have an introduction, and for whatever reason, I just started, messing around with the idea of making an introduction. And before it was over with, I had this written. It was easy to write. I enjoyed writing that.
Well, just as an FYI, there's occasional audio problems, but right now everything's fine. So I don't know if it's the mic or if it's something else, but let's try to move forward. First off is hellos. Simple Sister Living smiles at you. Matt Smith says, good evening. Kitch Cool 81 smiles. Grandma Patty says, hello, everyone. Unfinished Mystery says, they're on time tonight. I am. Kind of like Dr. Seuss, Sam I am or something. That's what it sounds like. Rebecca Hammond says, hello from Tennessee. Chicago Do-It-Yourself Now says, the picture's really sharp this week. And then Uncle Nesta says, hi, God bless you. Smoking my marijuana again. Oh well. September 1st was September 1st was his 28th sober anniversary. I wonder if that's yours. And then he asks, how are you today?
If it's days, it might be like we may be doing this together. It's been about 28 days for me.
I don't think you've mentioned that to anybody. Did you want to talk about that a minute?
Well, it's just part of getting old. I've always had a drink every night. Well, not every night, but most nights. Sometimes 2 or 3 drinks, but
well, wait. I don't think you're telling people what it is.
Oh,
I lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yep. Now you're good.
Let me jiggle some of these thingamajigs. I really don't know what's causing this. You need to come down here and set all this junk up for me, because
yeah, you do find yourself. But anyways, why don't you start from the beginning and tell everybody about your sober journey?
Oh, well, I just, for whatever reason, I'm getting sicker and sicker and older and uglier and everything. And I thought, well, I'm not one of these guys that's into all this healthful eating stuff, but I do see consistency in, like, family members that eat too much or eat things that I don't think are healthy, or they drink too much, or they smoke. I don't really see a difference in longevity. Like, all of my family generally dies about the same time, but the ones that they're always smoking or drinking, they usually end up in a wheelchair earlier, or they end up on oxygen, or they end up going to the hospital a lot. And I was thinking, it might be a good idea to just, well, I don't smoke, so I didn't give that up, but I was drinking a drink, maybe 5 drinks a week. Not all within the same couple of hours or anything, but in general, that's what I was drinking. I just thought, well, if we just stop drinking altogether, maybe it'll help. I don't see a difference, but at this point, it's like, why even bother if, I don't see a benefit either, and I'm not really... Actually, I do kind of see a benefit a little bit. It seems like the next day I feel a little bit better. But I said it before, there's no way in the world I was going to drive to the store twice a week to get salad items because I can't afford the gas. But I've been doing that. I've been driving to the store 2 or 3 times a week, get salad, so I can have a salad every night, because it just seems like that's probably a better choice than some of the junk I've been eating. So, and that's been, I guess it's been a couple of months, right? When did I tell you about that?
It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, so and I didn't tell you till it was too late, because I was like, man, I forgot, I'm sorry, we could have done this together. And your response was?
Oh, I don't even drink to begin with.
So it's like, okay, well, shoot, I guess I didn't have that figured out right. But I was talking to Usamas on Skype, and I said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna drink anymore." And he goes, "Well, I haven't had a drink in a month." I'm like, "Dang, why didn't you say something? We could have did this together." And that's when I called you. It's like, "Hey, we're all quitting. What about you?" "I don't drink."
Yeah. Well, Uncle Nesta, he clarified. He says 28 years of no booze, no cocaine, and no tobacco. Except now I guess he's on marijuana.
Yes, and that's the one that will really get you. I'm serious, man. I watched this movie the other night, one of the most informative documentaries I've ever seen in my life. It was called Reefer Madness. And I don't know if you know this or not, but everybody who takes a puff of marijuana commits murder. I swear, and I promise you that they didn't make that movie without doing the research. This is a true fact. So,
Yeah, okay.
and what's really,
I think you better clarify you're joking here. Okay. Wow, that your audio keeps going out.
man, you know what? I can do this. Let me just go ahead and switch this over because the audio wasn't going out before when I was using my junky mic. I just didn't like the quality of it. But let me go ahead and change mics and see if that helps any. Probably going to cause more harm than good. But
Well, while you're doing that, let's see. Joseph Fields says hello from Kentucky. Chicago Do It Yourself Now says, talking about the alcohol and everything, can't imagine it making a difference. Then Betty Labonte Carup says, don't feel too bad. It happens to the best of us. We're all getting older, but hey, not confessing the uglier part.
it's like, well, at this point, it doesn't matter if I'm good looking or ugly because any options I would have would be pretty much out the window at this point.
Let's see. Joe Mama says, hi, everybody. They're late. She's late. Shannon says, hi, is. Let's see. Matt Wilcox made a couple comments while you were reading your book. I'm not quite sure how they all apply. He said, Babylon has fallen already. And then he made a joke about whipping out a lightsaber, Obi-Wan. I guess I missed that part of the book where it was tied into Star Wars.
Hey, everything's tied into Star Wars. Star Wars is basically the story of the Bible with gizmos. You know, good guys and bad guys. Only thing is like all the good guys and bad guys in Star Wars are really just all bad guys. Some of them are bad guys that are really mean, and some of them are, I guess it's like they're all Republicans and Democrats or something. Can
Well,
you
let's
hear me?
see.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Now it sounds great. Yeah, it sounds
I'm
good.
over here talking into that broke mic.
Yeah, it's a bit echoey, but at least it's not cutting out, not yet. So if it doesn't cut out anymore, we'll know that's what it was. Next up, Don Jones says, John the Baptist had different plans for us than Jesus. Most feel John was on the same page just because he liked Jesus, but if you look close, he was always questioning him and his status.
There was, well, you know, that's kind of weird. I've looked at that before, and it's an issue because it bothers me when I don't have things figured out. But I got a feeling that I don't figure it out because of me. It's not because the Bible's wrong. You know, one thing they came and asked John, they said, who are you? What gives you the authority to speak? And then he answered them, and they said, well, are you Elijah? And he goes, no, I'm not Elijah. Well, Jesus comes along, and he's explaining, you know, the apostles are asking him about, I guess, the book of Malachi. The book of Malachi says that in the last days, Elijah will come. That's in the future, last days, the end of the world. And so the apostles, they don't understand it, and Jesus says, well, I'm going to tell you something. John the Baptist is Elijah, if you can understand what I'm telling you. So there was a question there about that, and I did a video about it. But then there's also, if you read it, initially John the Baptist is baptizing, right? But then when Jesus comes along, Jesus' apostles start baptizing. You know, Jesus never did any baptizing, but his apostles did. And so later in the Bible, after John is killed, people who had been baptized according to John come along and they say, well, if you haven't been baptized according to Jesus, you need to get rebaptized. And I don't think that that's like a real conflict. It's like John's baptism just meant something a little bit different than Jesus' baptism. And if you look back, see, when the people were brought into the Promised Land, they had to go through the Red Sea, and it says that trip was like a baptism for them. Same thing at the days of Noah, that Noah's ark was a baptism for the entire human family at that time. But when Jesus came, everything Jesus did represented the final baptism when the sea of ice is restored to the, above our atmosphere, when all of humanity becomes baptized by going under that water. So I don't think there's a real conflict there. I think it's just, well, if you watch a video I made about the difference between John the Baptist question of whether he was Elijah, and you look at the, the information about Jesus saying he was Elijah, is not really a conflict at all, I don't think. I think that was put in there so we would figure out a few things about the afterlife and the relationship that human beings have with angels.
Hey, we have to make an adjustment to the volume, so if you can go into your that desktop icon with the sound, and then boost up the mic audio like we've done in the past.
Yeah,
remember, go into the...
Alito knows more about my computer than I do. He can tell me what's on my desktop. Okay, recording, front mic, and configure, maybe. No, we don't need that. When you know what, I can share the screen with you and you can tell me what to do.
Well, no, you can't. But just go ahead and kick up the recording volume levels, mic levels.
Yeah, I'm trying to, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. Set default, configure, properties. Okay, levels. It's all the way on 0. Could you hear me at all? Hello?
A lot of people are having problems, but...
Well, it was on 0. Now I've got it up to 100, so I'll press OK. Does that sound better? It should be blowing you out right now. Test. Hello, test. Did I do something wrong?
Yeah. No. You're good now. You're good.
Oh, it sounds good?
Okay.
Everything good? I can get back to...
Good.
Yes, let's get back to...
a little bit too loud, but let's just leave it like it is. Okay. So, yeah. So, actually, next question. Let's move on to the next one. Mishu, that sounds kind of Chinese, asks a question. This puzzled me. Could you explain Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3? This is what I read. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things were seen, not made of things which do appear. And my question is, what is real, or are we all some kind of program? I think he's saying, do we really exist?
Yeah, I think that's probably a translation issue. I don't think it's well, let me just go to it and read it in a couple of different versions and see what because a lot of times what the key to understanding what might be wrong is to compare a bunch of Bibles at one time, and then if you see a conflict, it indicates that something's not right. So what verse is it? Hebrews chapter what? 11?
Find it again. You're right. I think it was 11. Oh, here it is. Chapter 11, verse 3.
Okay.
And then, well, you're looking that up. Who Me says he's been 59 years, no drugs, alcohol, tobacco. Wonder if that means he's 59 years old and never did it, or...
if he quit 59 years ago, yeah, he's either real old or he started really young. It'd be hard for me to call somebody 59 old. That ain't much farther down the road than me. By faith, we understand that the universe was created by the Word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. I would have to say that I don't know what that means. It's not that I have never read it before, but you read 36,000 verses in the Bible, and sometimes you don't remember all of them. We understand that worlds were prepared by the Word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things which are visible. Let's just see if that says logos, because that's the Word of God. Logos Theos. Theos, Logos. Theos.
And then while you're looking that up...
wait a second now. Before we go on, Ramadi, it doesn't say Logos. You know, I was thinking maybe this was talking about Jesus creating... Because I've heard Trinitarians say that. By Jesus, the world was created because Jesus is the Logos. But this is not the word Logos. This is something else. Okay, next. And look, I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question, but I've learned that the best answer is I don't know when you don't know. See, you won't get that from a standard preacher. Most preachers will make something up, and then they'll beat you to death if you don't listen to them.
Who Me says his joke about the 59 years old is, that is his age. So I guess he means he never did any drugs. Let's see. In regards to the real, not real, fake, are we all imagination? Don Jones says, if you can run your head into a wall and it hurts, you are real and not a robot.
I had a guy one time was telling me, his old man said, the difference between like human beings having an immortal soul. He says, you can't tell me that I don't know nothing, but if a brick falls on my head and I die, all of a sudden I know everything. It's an inside joke, okay.
Well, Betty Labonte, I'm going to have to abbreviate her name. She says that verse says that it means God spoke it into existence.
Yeah, from something that's invisible, I guess. You know what? Here's something I've heard before, and it's, I'm not a scientist because I've told God in prayer that I would never involve myself in religion again. I'm sticking to my word, so I'm not going to suddenly join forces with other members of the scientific religion. But they say that, when I was a kid growing up, we had the law of conservation of energy, and we had the law of conservation of matter, I think. And then later it was combined to the law of conservation of matter and energy, because it was determined by the scientific community that all energy is matter. And supposedly the atom bomb proved that, because they were able to take matter and convert it into pure energy. In other words, like a TNT doesn't convert matter into energy in the same way, but like a nuclear explosion does. And so all like particles of light, if they were to be stopped, they would turn into matter and they could be combined. But anyways, maybe that's what it's about. I don't know.
Well, Joseph Field says, what if the pain, from like running into the wall that you feel, what if that's just programmed, part of the artificial intelligence?
Fake pain.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of this comes down to this whole idea of artificial intelligence. Have you heard about how the electric car guy, Elon Musk, has made a statement about how we could all possibly be just artificial intelligence, and we wouldn't know it because, that's just the nature of our reality, is we're AI.
Well, what are the angels, this is like getting into the realm of trying to explain things that maybe humans can't explain, but angels, in the Bible, angels were able to affect humans. Wicked angels, righteous angels, so people were demon-possessed, and you can't tell me people aren't demon-possessed today. But, scientists with CAT scans and MRIs and, Ghostbusters with their machines, they can't see angels, and yet I believe in angels. I believe in demons. So, are they? They're imaginary to me. You can't touch them, can't smell them, can't see them.
Well, let's see. Chicago Do It Yourself says, "Hey, science is the one true religion." And then Don Jones says, "Scientology don't lie," and Grandma Patty says, "Religion is religion."
Yeah, it is. Religion is religion. Hey, look, if you're talking about the science that says if I stick a magnet to my refrigerator, it'll stay there, I'm with that, That part of the religion I believe in. If you're talking about the part of Catholicism that says it's our duty to love one another, I'm with that. But I ain't a Catholic and I ain't a scientist. Because there's a whole lot more involved in the religion of Catholicism than loving one another. There's a whole lot more involved in the religion of science than sticking magnets to your refrigerator. Dang, that was profound. Did you hear that come out of my head?
I think that went over my head.
It went over my head, and I'm the one that said it.
Laur Bukar says, hi, Sustenance. This is Laur from Dublin. Glad I could make it this time.
I didn't know he was from Dublin, but I know who he is.
Okay.
Actually, I know what his name is. I've never Skyped with the guy or anything, so I really don't know. I've got, in fact, as you're mentioning these names, is like they keep popping. I remember seeing that name somewhere, and I think, you know, here's the problem with YouTube, is that people are not by law required to use their real names. I don't use my real name on YouTube, and they're not required by law to use their real name on their email. And the same is true of Skype. And so I've got people that I have Skyped with and sent email to and spoken with on YouTube, and they use different names every time, and I don't, even while I'm talking to them, I don't know it's the same person. So, you know, I really need to like see the same person in the flesh every day for a month before I remember who they are. But these names, as they pop up, I'm recognizing the names.
Well, let's say DJ Billy Ray says they finally caught you live, and Chicago Do-It-Yourself says he doesn't want you to offend Catholics, says he was born and raised a Catholic. I do know something about brainwash.
Yeah, well, hey, it takes one to know one. I was born and raised Catholic.
Let's see, Uncle Nesta has been chomping at the bit for, are you aware of a room under the paw of the Sphinx? And what the Templar association to the Ark of the Covenant is? I'm
guessing I'm supposed to do some research when I get off here, because he brought that up last week, and I am not aware of it. But I mean, you know, they've got all these rooms under. When I was growing up, I was told that there were all kinds of chambers under the pyramids that they still never found. You know, that in fact the rooms that they have found took them years to find, and I don't even know how they did that, but somebody somewhere figured out they could move some big stone, and suddenly there was a whole world under there of gadgets and things. Well, expensive trinkets. You know, in fact, one of the things that they had under the pyramid, and I've seen a model of it at a museum, is an ark, very similar to the Ark of the Covenant. You know, 2 long poles, 2 long rods, and a box with cherubs on top of the box. So, you know, I mean, or some kind of creatures on top of the box. Well, that's what the Ark of the Covenant is. And in fact, you can go online and type in like Egyptian Ark of the Covenant and go to Google Images, and they'll have like there's a few old hieroglyphs of Egyptian slaves carrying this ark into some kind of a room with a couple of kings and queens sitting up there. So that's not a new thing. You know, I mean, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So did the Egyptians have their own Ark of the Covenant before they left Egypt, or did the Egyptians create an Ark of the Covenant after they found out about Israel's Ark? You know, because the Israelites, anytime they would go into battle, they would carry this ark with them. And maybe after a while, the Egyptians figured, if we're ever going to beat these guys, we really need to make a box, put some stuff in it, get the priest to pray over it, and that way we can beat, our God can beat their God. I mean, I'm guessing. And it may be that at the time, you know, the Egyptians had a god that could do magical things. Remember when Moses went in there and the Egyptians, he threw his stick down, it turned into a snake. So, well, I guess first the Egyptian priest threw down their sticks, and it doesn't say how many. It could have been that 100 priests threw 100 sticks down, and they all turned to snakes. And so Moses threw his stick down, it turned into a snake, and he ate the Egyptian snake. So they had powers. Their God was real. You know, Pharaoh was supposedly God in the flesh. And if you think about the progression, you know, you start out with Osiris. In the Bible, Osiris, which means bearer of light, is translated as Lucifer in our Bibles, bearer of light. In fact, that original word Lucifer is actually Halil, hello, which is where we get our word halo, the bearer of light. And that's why if you look at it, even if you look at Osiris, there's like always a ring over his head. And then you look at Catholic artwork, it's like all of these saints always got a ring over their head. Well, in ancient art of all these different cultures, there are pictures of planets, and sometimes the planets have rings around them, which would be like Saturn.
Let's see, Grandma Patty says the pyramid also has a room called the Holy of Holies in it.
Well, you know, here's the thing. Archaeologists have like completely recreated the temple at Karnak, and it's identical. You can measure it. You know, if you take Hebrew measuring rods, the temple at Karnak is identical to Solomon's temple. The measurements for Solomon's temple and all of the implements that were put into Solomon's temple match perfectly the temple at Karnak and all the implements that would have been put in the temple at Karnak. And both temples are temples to the zodiac. You know, the Hebrew temple, the temple that Solomon was ordered to build, was modeled after the zodiac of the Egyptians, or vice versa, one or the other. Well, let's just say this. If you go online, you can go on their line right now and look at the temple at Karnak, or type in temple at Karnak, Forest of Lebanon. Because remember, when Solomon built his temple, he went to Hiram being the king of Tyre, and he made an agreement that they would bring these cedars in from Lebanon. Now, we're not talking about like 100-foot trees. These were like 400, 500, 600 foot tall cedars, just as durable as stones. And they brought that in, and that's what they made the columns in Solomon's temple out of, is the cedars of Lebanon. So when the Egyptians built their temple, it had columns in it, just like the columns in Solomon's temple. And to this day, those are known as the cedars of Lebanon.
One quick correction. DJ Billy Ray says you had made a comment about one of the gods, but it's actually supposed to be Saturn instead of who you said. And Joe Mama says the same thing.
Yeah, thank you.
She thought Set was supposed to be Satan.
Set?
Yeah, Set was Satan because Michael Aquino, who left the Church of Satan, established the Temple of Set based on the Egyptian deity.
If you look at all the information about all the gods, Roman gods of the Roman pantheon and the Greek pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon. In fact, you know, the Phoenicians, Assyrians, British, American, all of these gods are the same gods, but they're mix and match. Like every mythology has got a prostitute god, and then they've got a virgin god, and then they've got a war god, and they've got a king god, but they all have hundreds of gods, and so to keep them all straight is impossible, because a lot of it is just like different characteristics of the same gods. And I'll tell you something about Set that I figured out when I was translating ancient Egyptian and translating ancient Hebrew, or when I was studying these things, is that like Isis, the god Isis, her name is actually Ishish. That's according to some people. Who knows? Who knows what it is? But it's the letters that are incorporated into the word Isis would actually be similar to other cultures around there that would be Ishish. Well, in the Bible, Eve is called Ishish, you know, or Ishisha, something like that, very similar. And whenever Cain killed Abel, Eve gave birth to another child, and she named him Replacement. That was his name, Replacement, I think. And the ancient Hebrew word for replacement, or in his place, or however that comes out, is Seth. So you can read that account. Cain killed Abel. Eve became pregnant. She gave birth to Seth. S-E-T-H, Seth. Well, the Egyptian god Set, S-E-T, would actually be S-E-T-H, because the letter that we translate as T in Set is actually the th sound. So Seth, who was in that same little tribal arrangement of Egypt, is the same Seth that's mentioned in the Bible. But if you read the stories they're not the same story. But they share similar attributes but different details. And it's the same thing with, like, okay, the god Jupiter is actually Cronus. But it's really not, because Saturn is not Jupiter, but Saturn is Cronus. I mean, if you look at the attributes and you look at the way it's spelled and all, it's the same thing. But Helios, or Halos, which is halo, is also the god Saturn, but Lucifer and Osiris are actually supposed to be the sun. You know, because Osiris is called the sun god. But if you ever look at the images of him, it's not really the sun. It's like a dark spot with the sun around it. So it's that halo of the sun caused by the passing of another planet or planetary body between the Earth and the sun, which could be Saturn, could be Jupiter, however the solar system was laid out back then. So, yeah, if you tell me I'm wrong about any of the gods, you're right, because there isn't any way of unjumbling them.
Chicago Do-It-Yourself says Zeus is Jupiter, and then Joe Mama says Saturn is Saturday, meaning 7.
Yeah, that's right. Saturn, you know, and that's in the Bible too. The Bible says that God was telling the Egyptian or the Israelites, I hate your rituals. Your worship is nothing more than Saturn worship. Well, that's right after getting on to them about the Sabbath. You know, the direct connection between Sabbath and the Saturn. That's where we get that Saturn Day. Like if you go to many cultures, like in our culture, it's Saturn Day. Saturn Day is based on Saturn Day. But if you go to like Mexico, it's Sabado, which is 7th, or rest day, right? So we've got Saturn Day, we've got Sabado, which is rest day, but then we've also got like Siete, which means 7, and Sabado, the rest day, would be a time for siesta, which is a combination of 7 ands. It's, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to put all this in the book without getting myself in trouble, but it's there. There's a definite linguistic connection. It's just like today I was trying to write about the relationship between Satan and Osiris and Lucifer, because you know Satan is also called the serpent, right? Well, the Hebrew word for serpent is like nachtosh or something like that. If you look at it, there's like 15 words in a row that are the exact letters with just slightly different inflections. And they don't mean the same thing, but like one word means copper, the other one means bronze, and the other one means brass, according to the best understanding currently. But also that same word ends up meaning hiss, like a snake would hiss, but the word for hiss means whisper in Hebrew. And also there's another word which means, I think, manipulation, which is the same word. So the snake and copper and brass and bronze and hiss and whisper and manipulation are all the same word. And if you look, like in ancient cosmology, you know, the North Star, which is now Polaris, at one time was the Hiss star, which is, it's also the serpent god that's Draco the dragon. But you know, even in ancient Egyptian mythology, if you ever go look at some of the pictures of Osiris, and Osiris is called the Green One. And if you look at the images, he's wearing what's called it's like a funeral garment, so that he has arms and he has a head, but his body from here on down is like a snake, and it's wrapped in cloth. And so they say that's his funeral wrappings. Well, it's not his funeral wrappings. It's the fact that he is the serpent god. You know, if you go down to Chichen Itza or any of China, you go to China, the god of civilization is the serpent god. You go down to South America, the ancient god of civilization is the serpent god. You go to Egypt, the ancient god of civilization is the serpent god. You read the Bible, the ancient god of civilization is the serpent. And that's all based on that manipulation, copper, hiss, whisper, manipulation, It's all the same thing. And when Moses took the Israelites into the desert and the serpents were biting them, it actually says the flying fiery reptiles were biting them, God told Moses to put a snake on a stick, and he specifically required that it be made out of copper, brass, or bronze. They don't know which one, but see that word for copper? Brass, bronze, it's all the same word as the word for serpent god or snake. I know this is like really, it's really complicated because it's just so much that's alien to our current culture. But I mean, it's all in the Bible. It's not just in the Bible. It's in. You can go on, like I say, go online, look up Osiris, the serpent god, the green one.
Going back to Giza and the pyramids a little bit, Learning Homesteader says they say they've only unearthed 5% at Giza.
Oh yeah, it's like look, them people. It's like nobody wants to buy property over there because every time they go to lay a foundation, they dig up some mummy or something, and then they can't dig. You know, they're just stuck. It's the same thing in Israel. You know, every time somebody puts a foundation for a house in Israel, they run into another mummy or some kind of funerary gadget, or you know, there's always something there to stop the work, and it's expensive. When they have to send archaeologists in, you know, you don't want property anywhere over there. If you do buy property over there, you better dig the slab yourself and keep your mouth shut about whatever you find.
Supposedly, I heard they just unearthed like the synagogue that Jesus, like in his hometown or something, and he read some verse there. Did you hear about that? It was just like maybe a month or two ago.
Hey, look,
there was this big announcement.
I have seen Jesus's coffin. In fact, I think I've seen like 50 of them. You know what? One of the things when Martin Luther penned that thesis on the door of the Catholic Church, I don't know if you know about that, but that's how the Protestant Church came into existence. The Roman Church was at the point of going to war with the population, and so they wanted some kind of way to separate themselves from the Catholic Church. So Martin Luther is famous for nailing this document to the door of the local cathedral, and in that document he said there were only 12 apostles, and I think he said so far 93 of them have been dug up in Germany. How is that possible? and I think another thing he said was that thousands of men have gone out to die looking for the original cross of Jesus, and so far it's like 100 million cubic feet of lumber have been recovered.
Doesn't get better than that, does it?
It kind of is like really cool to have a piece of the original cross from Jesus, but when you know there's that many of them, it's not as much meaning to it.
Okay, the pyramids and Knights Templar stuff, Chicago Do It Yourself Now says research, you can go crazy chasing after that Ark stuff. Last I heard it was in Ethiopia, Oak Island. Does it all really matter?
Well, it may not now. I think here's the thing is that we're heading into unknown territory here. We're fortunate if you're here on this website and you're watching this video and you're going to our regular website, and you're also just looking around at other things. So there are other people who are kind of awake to a few weird phenomenon. One of the things that if you go back and look at Hollywood in the Raiders of the Lost Ark film, and this was brought out by someone else, I never even realized it before, but when they finally found the Ark of the Covenant, it wasn't in Israel, where some people will say it is or they think it is. The Ark was in Egypt. Now, at the time, I never had put two and two together, and I'm not saying that Steven Spielberg had it right or anything, but if you read the Bible, there's a couple of events that took place before the two southern tribes were carted off into Babylon. See, the first, I guess the Assyrians attacked, right? I'm going to try to keep this simple, and which I know probably ain't going to work, but I'm going to try. The Assyrians came in and they attacked, and they carted off the 10 northern tribes. They took them into, well, they tortured them. I mean, took them into back home and just set them on fire and skinned them alive. And they did that until they ran out of people to torture. That was their form of entertainment. And then at the same time, the king of Assyria tried to take the 2 southern tribes, and he was unsuccessful. So there was a big period, and it was not like a week or so. It was like maybe 100 years or longer. And during this time, you know, all of those kings come along that nobody remembers. So you had Saul, you had David, you had Solomon, and it's like after Solomon, you know, the list goes on and on of guys that were just goofy guys that were trying to rule the world. Well, the Egyptians came in, and they actually got in. This is in the Bible. This isn't something that some archaeologists figured out. They got into Israel, and they went right into the temple. No telling what they were looking for, but they left, and the Bible very clearly says that they carted off all of the implements of the temple. Now, the way Christendom looks at that is they carted off everything except the ark, because the ark was the ark. The ark was not an implement. Well, that's baloney. It was just a thing that they used in their worship. It wasn't really much different than anything else. That, you know, they had candlesticks and special burning plates and all that kind of stuff in there, and obviously the ark gets more attention. But it still would be an implement, and it says very clearly that Pharaoh, I think it was Pharaoh Necho, hauled all that stuff back to Egypt, right? So then the next attack was the Babylonians. And it very clearly says in the Bible that when the Babylonians went in, they didn't find nothing, right? So it's like if the Egyptians went in, if the ark was there, and the Egyptians went in, and they were run off, and then the Babylonians went in and the ark was gone, there's pretty good solid evidence that the Egyptians hauled the Ark of the Covenant off. Now, in our day, the U.S. government puts Egyptian junk everywhere. That Washington Monument that's Satan's penis. It's Osiris's phallic symbol. That's what it is. In fact, if you look at it from the sky, they even recently put like an all-seeing eye underneath it. So just go look at that, take an aerial view, look down at the phallic symbol, and in there is the all-seeing eye, which is actually a human female reproductive system. Why America would put so much faith into this Egyptian religious system wouldn't make sense to us unless it was real. There's some kind of a connection there. Right now, the British and America, you know, we're supposed to think that in 1948 the courageous Israelites took back their sacred ground and all that. But the reality is America and Britain went in there and blew all those people up, or at the very least they supplied the soldiers. There was nobody there. America and Britain went around the world getting these people to swear allegiance to Israel. They brought them to the country. They put them in fighter jets. They gave them machine guns. They gave them bullets. They gave them bombs. And then 1948 comes along, and these vile people were able to exterminate the residents of the area, imprison the residents of the area, and take their land away from them. At that very moment, they already were making plans for rebuilding Solomon's temple or Herod's temple or Hiramab's temple, the Persian Emperor Darius's temple. All those temples sat on that Temple Mount. It is in the works, I promise you, it's in the works to build another temple there. It's very possible that all of the original implements for the temple still exist somewhere. It would not surprise me if the day that they laid the foundation stone, a whole bunch of guys in fancy costume waving incense around mysteriously came out of nowhere with this box and put it there. And don't be surprised if the thing starts smoking and, you know, magic starts happening, because, you know, that all of that stuff was not what God wanted. He gave them that stuff because they asked for it, and when the temple is reestablished, you know, the religions of the world want something to confirm that that's God's temple. So something is going to happen.
Did you ever hear about how the Washington Monument is supposedly 666 feet tall or something?
Yeah, these people are like, that term, hidden in plain sight. That's not, they didn't make that up. That's real. It's hidden in plain sight. I mean, if you go, obviously the average citizen cannot put a ladder on that thing and climb up to the top. But that little piece on top is gold, and it's got an eyeball on it, and it's got all kinds of, I don't know. It's a satanic symbol. It's just like the eagle. When if you go look at any of this ancient Egyptian stuff, Horus, which is the Nephilim, that was the son of the god Osiris and the human female Isis. Horus was the falcon god. You go look, all his pictures, he just looks like a predatory bird. Each and every one of the empires that came after that used the predatory bird as their symbol of their national symbol. So Osiris or Horus was a predatory bird. Then you go to Assyria, their symbol was predatory birds. You go to Phoenicia, Greece, Rome, and England and U.S. There's always predatory birds associated with mostly with the military, which is the economic system of the country, which is the Nephilim, the military. And when Jesus was on earth and they asked him, Lord, tell us about the last days. Tell us about what's going to happen when you return. And he said, well, wherever you see the eagles, that's where the corpses are going to be. And in our English Bibles, you can look this up. Look it up. Wherever they see the eagles, that's where the corpses are going to be. But don't type it in that way. Type in where you see the vultures, the corpses will be. When you find that verse, go to the concordance and look it up. There's a word there that's translated as vultures that is in the Bible like a dozen times, and the other 11 times it's translated as eagles. Even the Bible is doing, the guys that translate the Bible into modern language are doing everything in their power to disassociate the empire from Satan. Everybody knows that Satan in the Bible. Hello, let me get this. I'm not going to get it. How do I turn that off? I'll have to call it. Wait a second. You can fix my credit. I've never had a credit card. I'm sorry I wasted your precious time.
Anyways, you were talking about the eagles and the vultures.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the Bible, it says very clearly in ancient Greek that Jesus said, well, when the last days come, look for the corpses because the eagles will be there. The eagles will be gathered at the corpses. And our English Bibles all say, well, they don't all say it. Some Bibles I've seen say eagles, but I think King James says vultures, and most King James clones, they say vultures. But that word is used multiple times in the Bible. It's always translated as eagles. If you look it up in a Greek dictionary, it says eagles. So there's obviously an attempt there to hide the fact that the empire, you would be able to identify the last days by the fact that the empire would be involved in the killings. And this is not supposed to be the empire. This is, God's Christian country.
I think that's a good place to end it. So let's go out on a high note, they always say. So
wow! It's been an hour already?
Yeah. Maybe give some parting words. Maybe say something profound like you used to.
Man, I had something profound. Wait a second. Want me to read the introduction again? That was really profound. As always, we hope you enjoyed our live stream, and we hope you'll tune in next week. As a word of advice, though, do stop by the website, check out the podcast, and check out the book, the tab at the top that says the book. Every week, I am going to, if at all possible, add a chapter to that, so you can actually be ahead of everybody else in reading the book, because as I'm reading the book, y'all actually have future chapters already posted. Oh well, like I said, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you come back next week. And as always, if you do not want to survive, don't listen to me.